All right, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming. This is our Fall 22 Learning from Experience event. As we were talking about earlier, this has become a favorite event of many SASAH supporters, me included. It's always wonderful to hear about the opportunities the students have undertaken for their experiential learning requirements, and to hear about the development of their skills, their ideas about their career paths. And I particularly love to hear about how their confidence in themselves and their abilities increases with each experience. So before we get to the presentations, I will ask Dr. Era Suksi to give the land acknowledgements. Era.
Thank you, Barb. It's my honor to acknowledge that SASAH's home, Western University, is located on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenapehoak, and Chinonton peoples on lands connected with the London Township and Sombra Treaties of 1796 and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum. And when we recognize Indigenous peoples' relationship to this land, we're making explicit Indigenous peoples' ongoing presence, their rights to self-determination, and our own shared and individual responsibilities to uphold those rights, to contribute to the work of truth and reconciliation, and to celebrate, honor, and educate ourselves about Indigenous cultures. Committed as we are to a respectful and decolonizing approach to righting wrongs of the past and present, we acknowledge sacred teachings such as love, respect, courage, honesty, wisdom, humility, and truth to guide our approach to furthering equity, diversity, and inclusion at Western for the benefit of everybody. And I'll send it back to you, Barb.
Okay, thanks. I want to take just a minute to thank the students' employers and supervisors for giving the students the opportunities to show what they can do, sharing their time and their expertise, mentoring the students, and of course, working with me to allow the students to count their work for academic credit. I also want to commend the students on their hard work and professionalism, and to say how proud I am of you all. With the glowing reports the supervisors have sent about you and the good word they've shared with other organizations, you make my job easy and an absolute pleasure. This is a busy time of year for you, I know, but I'm so glad you have this opportunity to share your impressive and inspiring experiences with SASAH supporters and your fellow students. And just so you know, if I'm looking away, it's not because I'm distracted. I'll be typing my notes, my marking notes, as you are presenting. So let me remind you of the ground rules. Each student has 7 minutes to present. Jen will give you a warning sound at the 6-minute mark. For students presenting on one experience, we'll give you up to 30 seconds grace after the 7-minute mark. For students presenting on 2 experiences, we'll give you up to 2 minutes grace after the 7-minute mark. And after each presentation, we'll take 3 minutes for questions. With that, I'll introduce our first presenter. Shai Butler is leading off today with her presentation on her internship with Osborne Holdings, a Toronto-based boutique consultancy that has hosted several SASAH students, and I see Oliver has joined us, and I'm so delighted to have you here today. Her other experience was her USRI, her undergraduate summer research internship, which she undertook this past summer under the supervision of Professor Anthony Skelton. So, Shai, I will hand it over to you.
Great, thanks so much, Barb. I'm going to share my screen.
Yes.
Okay, can everyone see that okay? Okay, great. Okay, I'll begin. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today, I'll be presenting on 2 internships that I completed for my experiential learning with SASAH. One, as Barb said, with Osborne Holdings, and the other being the USRI program at Western. From January to April of 2022, I was a copywriting intern working with Oliver Osborne, who is the founder of Osborne Holdings, a Toronto-based consultancy delivering marketing strategies to businesses, as Barb mentioned. I quickly learned that Oliver is truly an expert and a professional in his field, so I jumped at the opportunity to work with him and learn this new skill of copywriting. Over the 8 weeks, another intern and I were assigned a variety of different copywriting exercises, and I'll walk you through just some of the highlights of my work with Oliver and a few of the outcomes of my time as a copywriting intern. So before I began this internship, I really didn't know what copywriting was. Oliver stressed that I needed to get out of this academic writer head that we all get being in school and get creative. So copy could either be boring and bland and unengaging. You could phone me or not. Or in Oliver's words, it could be spicy, and he loved to call it that. And that's what made it so interesting and fun to sort of learn about this new type of writing. I was introduced to our first client, decarb.earth, a company helping small and medium-sized businesses in South Africa decarbonize their enterprises. I was fortunate enough to sit in on an interview with Marco, who's the CEO and founder of Decarb, and Oliver led this interview. And from that, I wrote my first blog article about the amazing work that decarb.earth is doing and how businesses can do their part to be sustainable. The following week, I was tasked with leading my own interview, which was super daunting. But after witnessing Oliver, I used his tips and tricks for these sort of content generating meetings. And I wrote a business press article for one of Oliver's own businesses, Main Street Arts Club. The article was actually published on Osborne Holdings' website, which was a really huge accomplishment for me. And I thank Oliver for creating that space for me to share my work. Next was ghostwriting. So from the initial interview that we had with Marco, I authored a ghostwritten or first-person article. And Marco chose my article and he published it on his personal LinkedIn page. As you can see, it says my first ever article on LinkedIn. I'm sorry to out Marco, but I actually wrote this myself. And the article received some really great feedback. And that was another milestone for this internship. As for some of the goals, communication and creativity were key. The goal of copywriting was to communicate in creative and engaging ways that get your message across and capture the audience. And that was one of the biggest takeaways that I had. Execution and organization were emphasized by Oliver as well. We had weekly progress meetings and check-ins to ensure that everything was going along smoothly. And his management style really stressed delivering on time, which was a super important lesson. Diversity and inclusion and sustainability were integrated throughout the internship. Oliver made sure to include these throughout his own business and his management, but even the clients and the articles I wrote focused on these important subjects. And for the skills I developed, I learned how to effectively copyright and do so through a variety of mediums. I learned about marketing strategy, SEO, client relationships, social media, and more. A new skill I took away was how to lead and conduct interviews, as well as website publishing. Oliver guided me through using WordPress and working with his team member to digitally share my work. I was also introduced to new tools and tech. We used audio transcription, video messaging software, WordPress, and a lot of Excel. And lastly, teamwork. working for Oliver as part of a team required staying on top of my deliverables, frequent communication, flexibility, and positive interpersonal relationships. Next is my time with Western's USRI program last summer. This was a research internship where I was connected to a faculty supervisor to develop and assist with a research project. The USRI had a few different components. Interns were tasked with forming a research and development plan, engaging in professional development sessions, completing research activities, all while meeting with their supervisor, and then creating some sort of research output. So with Dr. Anthony Skelton as my supervisor, my research project was to examine the nature and causes of well-being by appealing to both disciplines of psychology and philosophy. I got started with a learning and development plan and then began attending professional development sessions. These sessions were really huge supports to my research. I learned about literature searching, reference management tools, copyright, and publishing. And all of these sessions helped me to accomplish the more specific steps that research entails. As for the research activities, it was a lot of literature review. I read a couple books on philosophy, watched lectures, and scoured resources for emergent information on well-being. I created an extensive annotated bibliography on key sources and then began to work on my research output. I created a poster that summarized and reviewed all my research, and that was uploaded to scholarship at Western, which was really exciting and sort of the culminating task for the internship. The goals of the USRI were to gain research experience and engage in professional development. Also, the self-directed nature of the project emphasized personal responsibility and accountability. This sort of related to executing my assignments and getting all of the deliverables in on time. Curiosity and creativity were important goals of this experience as well. Being new to research in the arts and humanities, I was interested to learn about what exactly that entails and how I can creatively contribute to research. I completed the internship having developed skills for organization and resource management. I outlined and allocated my time and resources to successfully complete the research. My skills for research itself and critical thinking grew tremendously. I sifted through a lot of research to discern what were the most important takeaways and what would best communicate most important ideas about well-being in philosophy and psychology. And philosophy being new to me, that was definitely a challenge. For collaboration, working with a supervisor taught me a lot. It was my first time doing so, and our meetings kept me on track and helped me shape my research direction. And I leaned really heavily on my communication skills to communicate effectively with my supervisor and then to communicate my research to a more general audience. So overall, it was a really great experience. That concludes my presentation, and thank you so much for listening.
Shai, thank you so much for starting us off so well. That was so well done, very polished and professional. So I'll open it up now for questions. Asif? Oh, you're applauding. I thought that was a hand up. Well, okay, Era.
I'll just ask a quick question. Shai, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation and it was so beautifully polished and clear. You had one experience that took you right out of the university context, and you had another experience that gave you insight into a kind of a more high-level research project. on the university campus. And I'm wondering if it would be fair to ask you if you could see ways in which the skills you learned really overlapped with each other, or did you find them completely different?
That's an interesting question. I think they were quite different.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest sort of thread throughout them was probably writing and communication and really developing those skills. I want to say like really granular and specific things that were important to both internships was like proofreading, editing, grammar, things like that to really get a message across clearly. Something that Oliver talked about was how those sort of minor mistakes can really cloud up your work and take away from it. So I really focused on just honing my writing and communication skills.
Thanks so much.
I'm going to jump in here with a question myself. So you talked about learning to interview in the Osborne Holdings internship, and I was wondering, what advice would you give to your classmates on how to interview well?
Oh, that's a great question. Come prepared with a bunch of different questions and also lines of questioning that move in different directions. And I think the most important thing about interviewing is actually listening to the response that the interviewee gives. Because I think that a lot of times we can just jump to the next thing we had written, the next question we had prepared. But it's really important to digest the information that you're receiving and move accordingly and sort of take it in a way that the person you're interviewing is leading the interview. That's sort of where I found the most interesting and thought-provoking content came out of.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If there are no other questions for Shai, I think we'll move on. Thank you so much, Shai. That was great. Next up is Catherine Castles, who will be, who's also presenting on a USRI, which she undertook in the summer of 2021 with Professor Arasuksi, as well as on her role as the Community Engagement Coordinator in Western's Careers and Experience, which she's been doing since the summer. Catherine?
Hi, everyone. Sorry if I'm looking up. My monitor is very high and my camera is very low. So apologies for that, but I will share my screen and we can get started. Good. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Catherine Castles. I am in my 5th and final year of SASAH. I've been doing a dual degree at the Ivy School of Business with SASAH, and my other major is in art history. So for career opportunities and CEL opportunities, there's been a wide variety that I could have done, but these are the 2 that I have taken. And both of them have been research and at Western, or not both of them research, just the one, but I'll dive right in. So the USRI was in the summer of 2021. That was my first summer after my full year in Ivy, so I was a little bit nervous about getting back into the arts and getting back into academic writing because Ivy is so skills focused. But I was really excited to have this opportunity to create my blog, which you can see here. There's just a little snippet of it, but the full thing is published on Scholarship at Western if you're curious. So about the USRI. So what was it? It was essentially an independent research position supervised by our own Dr. Suksi. The USRI program is variable depending on your major, but like with most of SASAH, RA encouraged us to work independently on whatever we were interested in. The project had a creative aspect to it, so it was to be written or produced in a way that could be understood by somebody outside of the discipline entirely, making it accessible to a wide range of audiences. Some of the key components of the role included proposal writing, research, and website building. Writing the proposal was one of the most difficult steps for me, as I had to narrow down what I wanted to research. Coming back to the arts after a full year in business, I was nervous about my knowledge and picking something that I didn't know enough about, but I was really determined to learn as much as I could throughout the duration of the summer. Website building was an optional part of the job, since we could create any creative deliverable of our choosing, but I decided to blog on a blog for my final deliverable, as I am sort of interested in web design and that sort of thing. Finally, throughout the summer, we had to attend several skill building workshops of our choosing centered around research skills. There was a wide variety to choose from, including ones on how to organize research, navigate libraries and databases effectively, and even how to get your work published in an academic environment. These were very helpful throughout the process in turning my ideas into a final product, which we then presented. As you can see here, it was a virtual presentation using this GatherTown app, which was like a video game. It was kind of crazy. You can see the little GatherTown thing there, and I'll go back quickly. There's my blog, just a little screenshot of it. But yeah, you can see the thing that we had to use because it was during COVID, so we couldn't have an in-person research conference like you normally would. There we go. So what were some of my goals throughout this summer? I was working 2.5 jobs this summer and doing summer school. So I really wanted to stay on top of all of my work. I wanted to be able to learn how to manage my time better. But most of all, I really wanted to better my writing skills. After a year in IB, I was out of practice and really wanted to get back into it and make sure that my academic writing and my professional writing were up to par. And this was especially important since we had to make sure that our writing was understandable by a wide variety of audiences. I wanted to learn more about my areas of interest. I had considered a career in academia before. I was thinking of potentially moving on to my master's. This was my 3rd year. I was sort of thinking about what would come next. So I was trying to narrow down a topic that might be interesting to research in the long term. I ended up picking accessibility of galleries during COVID. So it sort of combined the socioeconomic structures of having in-person versus online galleries and the adjustments to accessibility that were changing during COVID and potentially made art way more accessible, which was my thesis. And I was also interested in learning about the kind of job I wanted. Again, I was very curious about academia. I was curious about what it was like working in a very independent role and wanted to see if research was something I would be interested in long term. So what did I gain? Writing skills and so much more. I was able to publish this website, which I was very proud of. And it looked really good, but it also had all of the content that I wanted, and I was very happy that I was able to do it independently. Obviously, Ara helped me so much, and I had an amazing relationship with my supervisor. Having this support was very critical to me, as it was really beneficial to help keep the project on track. And whenever I was worried or had questions, Ara was always there to answer them, and she was there to make sure that the project was successful. I learned that working alone is great sometimes. I loved working independently. I liked being able to sit at my desk and just sort of relax and have time where I didn't have to speak to anyone. But I loved going into work every day in my other job and being able to talk to somebody new and have that sort of immediate impact. So it was really nice to sort of be able to have that duality. And I published a paper that I was very proud of. So moving on, I think I'm running out of time. So let's talk about Western careers and experience as a community engagement coordinator. As you can see here, I was very excited. I had my own office, which was something new for me. So my key roles were to plan orientation serves. Obviously, that is a giant role, and there was lots of little responsibilities within it. I was to help hire and organize a team of community engagement champions, which are to help me all year. This is a full year role, but I'm going to focus on my summer responsibilities because that's what I used for the CEO portion of this. I was to meet with community organizations and match their needs to the community support at Western and help support Western students. So these roles were really reciprocal and making sure that both the organization and the students would benefit equally. And I was to work with a wide variety of stakeholders to plan this large scale event. So I wanted to learn what it was like to work on a large team. I had to work with SOFs, students, other departments, professors, and more. And constantly working with new people and making sure that everybody understood me was very difficult. I wanted to see if working in an office was interesting because I'd never had before. And I wanted to impact students in a meaningful way. I was thinking about a career in a nonprofit sector as I'm part of the sustainability certificate at Ivy and also part of the social impact club. So looking to see how I could get involved in those sorts of roles was really interesting to me. So outcomes, I helped plan 10 events on campus and restructure Orientation Serves. For those who don't know, Orientation Serves is a day of volunteering where the first year students get out and meet with community organizations and volunteer for the day. Typically we've had them go into community, but this year we brought them all on campus, and this restructuring was really successful and something that will continue into the future. I learned what it was like to work on a large team with many stakeholders. As I said before, there were tons of people that I was meeting on a daily basis. I had like 4 or 5 different recurring weekly meetings with different stakeholders and different partners. So working with so many people was something that was new and challenging. I worked in an office. I was very excited to have an adult job. And I gained more skills that I could count because I was planning every part of these events. I was working on marketing. We did crowd research driven data planning, communication, and I had to think creatively in every single step of my job. And here are some photos from the summer. It was really fun. I got to go up on stage and present in front of literally all of the first years. There was some chinchillas at a petting zoo during orientation week. There's the rest of the orientation team. But presenting to large groups was also something that I learned a lot about. And overall takeaways.
Time's up, Catherine.
Oh no, okay. But anyway, thank you so much. You guys can—
No, Catherine, go ahead and just finish your takeaways.
Okay, so I love working with others. Independent projects are great, but I love having the structure of working on a team and being able to support each other. Tangible outcomes are nice. Having fast-paced and quick turnarounds is something that I really enjoyed. Those longer, slower projects are really hard for me to stay motivated. And willing to learn. I loved pretty much everything I've done throughout all of my CELs. So how will I ever narrow it down to a career? Stay tuned and find out. But yeah, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Catherine. I could tell you were just right near the end, so I didn't want to cut you off right there. And thanks, Jen, for staying on top of the time for us. Okay, that was wonderful. Do we have any questions for Catherine?
I'll ask one. So Catherine, you mentioned a few times you were trying to figure out what type of career for you. Have you settled on something?
I'm currently applying to jobs right now. I'm looking potentially at marketing, but I'm also applying to my master's right now in library and information sciences. So we'll see what I end up doing like full time, but the answer is still no. I want to do more school. I still might want to do a PhD. I don't know.
Ariana, do you have a question?
Yes. So I guess it's more of a question and a comment. I think I see a lot of resemblance between your work and the way I work. And I actually have been exploring librarian science, Catherine. So from one comment you made that you said you love learning. That was really interesting. Can you expand on that? Like, what are the things about learning you like so much?
Yeah, I think I really like having a diversity of functions in my roles. So having a specific job where there's limited opportunity to learn new skills or create new things or try something new, I think would be limiting. But I love being able to sort of exercise that creative muscle and learn how to use it in different ways. So there's lots of different ways of learning, whether it's academic or in a workspace, but I like the idea of constantly being able to try something new and see if it works.
We have one more. Thanks, Catherine. We have another question, and from Andrew Fullerton. And Andrew, we're so pleased that you could join us today. Welcome back.
Hi, Andrew.
I am so happy to be here. Great presentation, both Shai and Catherine. Catherine, my question for you is kind of related to the intersection of your two experiences. So on the one hand, you got to do, some work with research, which is like very stereotypical academia. But then you also got to be involved with, like onboarding new students, some marketing work, other things that are very deeply related to academia, but not necessarily people's first thought. So I'm just curious if that's changed how you think about a career in academia going forward.
It has and it hasn't. I feel like working for students and in an office like with students is a little bit different. I wasn't working directly with students for a lot of the summer. I was planning for them. So it's sort of removed from more of like the academia bit of doing research and then potentially teaching. But I think at the end of the day, like there's the same goal of making sure that students get the best education experience possible. And I feel like that's really impactful for me personally. I love being able to work with others and make sure that they're feeling confident and empowered, because I know that's so helpful in my career. So I think there's similarities, but I'd say the academic research side was very individual, whereas the other side was very almost corporate. It didn't sort of feel like an academic role at all.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
And I love what you said about wanting to help empower students and build their confidence. I can really relate to that, and there is great satisfaction, gratification in that. So
yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. Our third presenter today is Matthew Dawkins. Matthew also undertook a USRI in the summer of 2021, in his case with Dr. Mary Helen McMurrin. He'll be presenting on that and on his work this past summer and fall as the EDI assistant for the County of Huron. Matthew?
Okay, thank you so much for that, Barb. So I am going to share my screen, and I think my presentations are perhaps somewhat more unorthodox than others, in the sense that they're a lot more, not case study based, but talking a lot more about the experience, and then I want to talk more about the outcomes. But I preface that by saying I have lots to talk about. The experiences have been great, and I fully welcome questions at the end. So Barb talked a little bit about how I did a USRI in 2021, but I'm going to be a little bit mischievous and disobedient, and I'm going to talk about my USRI this year as well, because I think they're both super interrelated, and I think they both gave me very similar experiences, and I think talking about them in tandem will better help me to talk about my experience as a student researcher. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about my USRI that I did with Mary Helen, which is about public humanities. And I also want to talk about my USRI that I did with Joe Faflak about the politics of Black art. So I'm going to be talking about the Black artistic landscape and the tradition, which covers the kind of more research-based outcomes and experience that I had as a USRI researcher. And then I'm also going to talk about the necessity of public humanities, which leans more towards my experience with Mary Helen McMurrin. So my instruction for both, essentially, I stepped into my USRI experience knowing that I wanted to discover a lot more about research and what that could look like for me. And I think my academic experience so far has been excellent in teaching me all these things, but I really wanted to extend and learn more. So when it came to discovering and working with Joe Faflak and figuring out what that looks like, I really wanted to examine the extent to which Black art is inherently political, because I found that for me, as an artist, as many of you probably know, but as a Black artist specifically, I wanted to get to the bottom of a lot of the concerns that I had. And then likewise, with working with Mary Helen McMurran, I wanted to uncover what it meant like to be a researcher that's kind of a part of and instituted in the institution and in the university, and what it meant like to be an community organizer at the same time, and what it meant to be navigating those relationships. So when we talk about the Black artistic landscape, I investigated the history of particularly the United States, colonial relationship, post-colonial relationships, and how racism kind of plays a role in all of that. And then that led me to essentially discovering how art for Black folks have changed over time, given that context. And it led me to a lot of literature reviews. It led me to a lot of discussions with other artists. And that kind of made me think to use a lot of the artists that we know today, such as Beyonce, Jordan Peele, and Lorna Goodison, as case studies to better examine how Black artists create art and how they navigate the kind of line between making their art, but also making political statements. And each case study gave me a different kind of answer to the question. And I think ultimately led me to realize that Black art in some way is always inherently political. Meanwhile, working with Mary Helen McMurran, I also did a lot of research in this end through a literature review, through essays and reflections, but also through working with the Embassy Cultural House, which is a organization and community of artists in London, Ontario. And in this role, I saw myself as the case study. So as someone that's a part of the university that's doing a USRI, what will it look like for me to enter a community space and probably do some programming? And the main programming that I did was the George Floyd Project, which saw me investigating how, as folks and citizens and residents in London, Ontario, we can begin to commemorate the Black Lives Matter movement and pay homage and honor to Black artists. And all of these researches saw me doing, as I said before, literature reviews, and my research outputs were research posters, one of which is right here, The Necessity of Public Humanities, and a final essay, which are all available on Scholarship at Western. And shout out to Shai, who gave an amazing presentation that kind of talked about the essence of a USRI. So I won't repeat word for word verbatim what she said, but essentially this is great in allowing me to develop research skills and what it means to be a more academic researcher and how I can do that and be a community builder at the same time. So that's my USRI. And now I'm gonna pivot, stop sharing, and then I'm gonna reshare, and I'm gonna talk about my County of Huron experience. If my computer would like to work with me, let's do that together. Here we are. So with the County of Huron, as Barb mentioned, I operated as the EDI assistant. And I'm still operating as the EDI assistant up until the ending of this month, which is very, very exciting. And I think it just goes to show how our relationship has benefited mutually. So we've done many things together, and I'll try to keep it brief. I know some of them are on the call, and I think it's amazing the amount that we've accomplished in such a short amount of time, but I'll try to, as I said before, keep it as succinct as I can. So we've done collaborations, we've made EDI resources, and I'll use like the land acknowledgement project that we did together to discuss that. And I'll also talk about how I've been a consultant and how I've made EDI strategies for Huron County as well. So my relationship working with the Huron County has been that it's great because as someone that's done EDI work in the past, I get to bring new knowledge, but also I get to learn a lot by working at a government institution and also just being in a more professional setting and learning how I can merge both like that experience in that setting with the experiences that I have before. And that kind of really set the tone for the execution of the work that I do later on. execution of the work being multiple documents and strategies and research, many of which are listed here. But the primary one that I like to highlight that I think is really all-encompassing of the type of work that I've been able to do is our land acknowledgement user's guide. So this was kind of one of the first projects that I worked at Huron County. And this basically saw me refreshing and updating the current land acknowledgement that Huron County has, we went through, we like redid it, we reworded it to make sure it was more socially relevant to today. And we used a lot of Indigenous resources that were collected before and also now that I'm in the role. And this saw the development of a guide that was shared with the entire county. And also this saw me presenting the new land acknowledgement and the guide to the Huron County Council to get it ratified. And I think that kind of collaboration and working together was really what drove my experience in Huron County. We also did many consultations. So as an EDI assistant, I was able to share the resources that I had and also develop on those skills and learn more about EDI. And I've also been able to develop strategies to better help Huron County partners and internal relationships to be more equitable and inclusive. One strategy was the Belonging, Healing, and Inclusion strategy, which saw me discover and investigate immediate, case-specific, and long-term preventative action to make sure that EDI was sustainable. And okay, I hope I wrapped that up in the last minute that we had, but essentially, I'll speak for the next 10 seconds. This experience really got me the opportunity to develop a lot more professional skills and also allowed me to understand a little bit more about what EDI can look like in a government organization and an organization in general, and what it meant like to be consistently learning and improving and changing policy and human resources. And that was my experience. Okay.
Thank you, Matthew. Are there any questions for Matthew? Sarah?
Hey, Matthew, that was awesome. Thank you so much. I am aware of your history since year one, pretty much in the program of developing EDI programming and critiquing our curriculum and how impactful that's been. And I wanted to ask you, obviously the work that you were doing with Huron County continued those kinds of endeavors. And I wanted to ask, how you see what you learned with Huron County building on what you'd already done here in the academic setting.
Great question. I think in the academic setting, and this was kind of, I want to say, the benefit of what I did with my USRI was that it was a lot more community focused. Like EDI for me at the university looked like what it meant to be engaging with the different ethnic, racial, and minority groups on campus, and how do we build community. But at Huron County, I think it looked a lot more like, how do we educate internally? How do we as a team begin to build resources, build knowledge bases, build education for us as a team before we can begin to even help or consider helping others? So specifically as an EDI assistant, I worked under the communications portfolio and also human resources. So for me, it was a lot more internally focused. And I think that was really great in that way, because for me, it was a lot more about building knowledge and building resources than necessarily, like I do in the university, reach out to people and like building like a more group focused initiative.
Right. Thank you so much. And for guests who are here who may not be aware of it, Matthew's had a lot of experiential learning in this past year. He is the student writer in residence for Western University, and he has recently published a book and been on tour with it. And I can't even imagine how you do all the things you do.
Does anyone else have a question for Matthew?
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Matthew, it was so great to hear your presentation, and I'm always just so in awe of everything that you're doing. But I was curious to know, because having done a USRI, and as Catherine talked about, it's kind of a more independent, like individualized project versus your other internship sounded super collaborative, and you're engaging with the community and other people. So maybe like, what did you like better? What can you take away from those two different experiences? One being working with people and one being a lot more independent.
That's an excellent question. I think for me, I see my USRI as more catered towards my academic development and my research development specifically. I think I've learned a lot about, I mean, I've always done like literature reviews and final essays before, but throughout my USRI and having amazing supervisors like Joel and Mary Helen, I was able to really hone in on what those really meant and really improve on those skills for myself. Whereas I think my relationship with the Huron County is more like professionalization, and how do I go about building resources and building like internal knowledge bases. So I think one is more academic and one is more professional. And that's not to say that one is better than the other, but I think they both go towards meeting and completing and benefiting different ends. If that makes sense. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
That was great. Matthew, thank you so much. Fourth up today then is Rachel Jensen. She will be presenting on her Green Speakers internship with Greenpeace Canada and on her internship this summer with Western Heads East. Rachel.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Barb. I'll just share my screen and then we can get started. Where are we? Audience window. Perfect. Can everyone see that? Perfect. There we are on the right screen. Okay. So hi, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about experiential learning with Greenpeace and with Western Heads East. So just to briefly introduce myself, my name is Rachel and I'm a fourth-year student here at Western in the SASAH program, so School for the Advanced Studies in the Arts and Humanities. And my second major is in geography, so geography and environment, more specifically environment and health. And I'm also completing a minor in French. So I'm going to start off today by talking about Greenpeace and my internship experience with them from November of last year to May of this year. So Greenpeace is a nonprofit environmental organization which was originally started in Canada in the 1970s, but now operates on a worldwide scale. And their one goal is to protect the environment, and their initiatives cover everything from deforestation to pollution, climate change, fossil fuel production, and so much more. My role specifically was with Green Speakers, which is a branch of Greenpeace Canada that primarily focuses on education. So Michael Suxi, I think you're here today, hi. My supervisor and Larry Fritz formed the GTA Green Speakers in 2016. And the group gives presentations to school-aged youth to educate about current environmental problems and discuss solutions. So as an intern, my primary role was as a presenter. So the main goal of my internship was to become a good presenter and in turn focus on environmental awareness and empowering youth. So the process began by watching presentations and observing other Green speakers. And during this time, I took notes and conducted research on any topic that I needed to know more about. Lastly, the goal was for me to be able to present on my own, which I finally did in April. And I also attended monthly meetings and reflected on what could have gone better or what went well with Michael after the first couple presentations. And here I just have a photo of most of the presentations that are offered by Green speakers. There's a lot of different topics and a lot of different age groups within that range. So some of the obstacles working with Greenpeace included time management. So all of our presentations occur between the hours of 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So sometimes there were conflicts with my own classes. Second, Wi-Fi connectivity. So the Wi-Fi in my student house was unreliable. So I had to find somewhere else to work. And thanks to the SASAH team, I was able to access a room on campus that was quiet and had secure Wi-Fi. And then lastly, organization. So keeping track of each presentation topic, the teacher, the grade, the team's link, and the partner was often a lot to do over email. So I used this spreadsheet that you can see here to do that. Okay. All right, can you see the next slide there?
No, not yet.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. Do you see the outcome slide I'm so
Yes.
sorry. I
Yeah.
don't know why.
No, that's fine. Yeah, we see it.
Okay, perfect. So for outcomes, so overall, I completed 25 presentations with green speakers between January and May, and I participated in 7 monthly meetings. And lastly, I fostered positive and impactful discussion among youth with a focus on environmental issues and solutions, which I think is the most important and definitely was like a really gratifying experience. All right. Okay, we're moving still, we're good.
Yeah, you're good.
Awesome. Okay, so for the second portion of this presentation, I'll be covering the time that I spent as an intern at Western Heads East, where Maria was my supervisor. So what is Western Heads East, or WHE? It is a collaboration between Western staff, students, and faculty and African partners using probiotic foods to contribute to health and sustainable development. So at Western Heads East, I took on the role of facilitating ESL lessons, or English as a second language, with Mikono Yetu and Mishana Tai. Founded by Maimuna Kanyamala, their focus is on women's empowerment. And I also worked with Nyeo Zangu, a digital creative agency where I worked as a copywriter and content creator, and the point of contact there was Paul Seni. And then the three of these organizations were located in Mwanza, Tanzania. So the main goals for my internship were to conduct ESL lessons Mondays and Wednesdays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. to create content for Mikono Yetu's Instagram and to write copy for various Nyeo Zangu client websites. So we met with our community partners in the beginning to set these goals, and then throughout the rest of the semester, or I guess it was the summer, throughout the rest of the term, we were meeting on a regular basis to continue talking about how the work was going and what we could do better. So in May, there was the initiation. We completed the critical and ethical global engagement training and gender norms and sexual violence training. And then again, like went through the internship. My partner here, Mira, is who I worked with on the ESL lessons, and she's there in both of those photos. So some of the obstacles that we encountered as interns at WHE included accessing feedback. So Mira and I developed a feedback form to ensure that the girls were getting the most out of their English lessons. And Alvin Se Omandi, who taught Swahili lessons to us in the beginning, was able to translate these feedback forms so the girls would be able to answer in Swahili, which was really helpful and kind of like helped overcome whatever language barrier was there and make sure that we were really doing what was best for them. So when the second issue was connection, so like with Greenpeace, initially it was my internet issue, and then on the during the summer when I was home, I had good internet, but then sometimes the girls in Mwanza couldn't connect. So we still needed to come up with solutions to offer them productive ESL lessons, usually through homework. And our contact there was Rahima, so she would distribute that for us. And lastly, we always made sure that the work we were doing and prioritizing was the work that our community partners wanted, and that we're not spreading ourselves too thin, because there was definitely a lot going on with this opportunity. All right, so I have outcomes. So the outcomes of my internship at Western Heads East, I've divided it into 3 sections. So WHE, just being like the general stuff we had to do as interns. So we updated the training manual for the next and incoming interns. We posted 7 blogs on the WHE blog and took 2 Swahili lessons in the beginning. For Mikono Yetu, or Mishana Tai, we facilitated 20 ESL lessons over the course of the summer and prepared this feedback form. And then for Nyeo Zangu, we participated in user feedback. So if they were doing like any sort of logo creation, then we would be able to give feedback. I also created content for the Mikono Yetu and Mwanza Hospital Instagram. There's a little picture here of, it might be really small for you guys, but it's a picture of like a screen grab from the Instagram of Mikono Yetu. And then I also wrote copy, like did copywriting for EAR Construction, Green Path Aviation, Connect Space, and Rhines Bay Hotel, which are all Tanzanian-based companies. And here I just have a couple more photos of different deliverables, I guess, that we had over the course of our work. So in the top corner is a screen grab from one of our Swahili lessons. There's a couple of words there that we made sure to learn over the course of the summer. An example of the homework that we might have sent home with the girls. And then below is from the Instagram of Mwanza Hospital, which was really largely focused on women's reproductive health. And then on the other side, we were working on a website called Figma to do all of the copywriting. And so I would be able to just leave comments to like fix up certain grammar mistakes and stuff like that. Okay. So lastly, the learning outcomes. So throughout both of my internships, I did a lot of work, but also learned so much and gained both personal and professional skills that will last a lifetime. So with Greenpeace, I became more confident in conducting presentations in a virtual environment. Although this doesn't, I've run into a lot of problems here. So I don't know if that's so true right now. But I definitely became more confident. I also developed like problem solving skills. So I suppose this might be one of those as well, where you're working to really overcome all those technical obstacles. And then working through presentations on different topics for different age groups, you definitely have to have like a lot of information retained and know how to speak to different audiences. And then professionally, I developed presentation skills, graphic design skills, and research skills with Greenpeace.
Please wrap up.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. So then with Western Heads East, I found that the skills I refined at Greenpeace were really useful. So I gained skills in intercultural communication, teamwork, and working with my community partners in NERA was really helpful in that. Professionally, I learned all these hard skills that I think are just going to be super valuable for the rest of my career. So thank you so much for listening. I have just a little thank you slide. Yeah, and so sorry about the mix up in the slides and all that. So
That's so perfectly okay. It always happens every time. And you know, you rolled with it quite well. I would have been giving up, running away. So you did really well. Thank you, Rachel.
thanks.
Does anyone have a question for Rachel?
I have one. It's Michael.
Yeah, hi, Michael. Thank you for joining us today. Please go ahead with your question.
Thanks for having me here. Rachel did a fantastic job working with Greenpeace, and the question I have, she did an amazing job. I can't emphasize that enough. The question I have, Rachel, is if you can describe for the group, please, when you were presenting to the students, what was it like? Like, how did they respond to you, and how did it make you feel?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, so I think I mentioned like definitely when we've talked about this is how good it feels to present to a group of students who are really engaged, and from like the youngest grades, even like up to grade, I think the oldest I've presented to is maybe grade 9, but even in those cases where you think the students are less likely to participate, there's always like at least one student who feels like so passionate about the topics that we're discussing, and we always make sure to have our presentations, we like start them off and it's like, oh, this might be really depressing, like it covers all the bad stuff, and then we always end with all these things that you can do. And I always love when students really take in that second part and really reflect on things that they're going to be able to do or can go home to their families and do. And I think just at the end of the day, it's really gratifying. It's hopeful. It makes you feel good about the fact that there's young students and people who are really passionate about making good choices for the environment.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for the sake of the group, Rachel is, although she's finished with the internship, she's still volunteering with our group and still active with us, and she's just a fantastic part of our team. Thanks.
Thanks, Michael.
That's amazing. Other questions for Rachel? Maria, thank you so much for joining us today. Do you want to go ahead with your question? You're muted.
Hi, that works.
Hi.
So Rachel, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm just wondering about if you were able to identify any intersection between both opportunities. And it was about the skills that you gain or the impact that you were able to see. So I'm just wondering about any intersections that you were able to identify.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think definitely the presentation aspect was really huge. So doing the ESL lessons with Western Heads East and then comparing that to doing presentations with Greenpeace is kind of like the most obvious link. and definitely seeing like the ways that you can positively impact or share information with students. But then there's also like the other things too, like so the skills that like the confidence that you gain or the connections that you make with people. So I always love like when you have that impact on someone. So leaving a Greenpeace presentation and the teacher emails you after and says like, our class is so happy about this, and then saying goodbye to the girls at the end, like mid-August when we had to say goodbye, and it was like, thank you, like, when are you coming to Tanzania, like thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Like I think just that is the biggest connection that I can make.
Thank you, Rachel, for your presentation. That was amazing, and your experiences are incredible. To start off the last half of our event, Tiffany Lin will be presenting on her USRI this past summer, which she did under the supervision of Dr. Erica Lawson, as well as her marketing internship with Aspire Naturopathic, which she also did this summer. You had a very busy summer. I'll hand it over to you to tell us all about it.
Great. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, hold on. It says I am blocked for some reason. Okay, hold on. Okay, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, hi everyone, my name is Tiffany. I'm in 4th year and I've completed 2 internships this past summer, and I'm honored to be sharing these experiences with you as they've both trained me in so many different skills. I want to mention right now that both these internships were strictly virtual, so I really struggled to find unique photos of me doing work because all the photos I took was just me like either in bed or at my desk or at some other table. So I tried my best to switch it up a little bit. So the first internship I'm going to be talking about is the USRI, like many of my peers have also done. I think I'm going to go as far as to say that my USRI experience has been one of my favorite and most meaningful experiences as a Western student. One thing I find really amazing is that every student undertakes something really different. And for me, that looked like working with Dr. Erica Lawson to review her syllabus for GSWS 1030, which is Introduction to Black Studies. This is a completely new course offered next semester, and I'm honored to have been able to participate in finalizing the educational material. So these are the overall goals for this project: to review the syllabus and its materials from a student point of view. And I was also required to research effective pedagogy and subsequently kind of use that information to inform my criticism of the syllabus, and then to ultimately publish a paper on the prevalence of Black Studies modules in Canada. This included literature reviews, researching new material, and also being in constant discussion as to whether every element in the syllabus, like every reading and video, etc., would be simultaneously educational as well as engaging, which this last part actually proved to be more difficult than I had imagined. And I finally got a glimpse into what it takes to be a professor or educator, and I really commend you all for it. So moving on, as you can see here, I put in my abstract for the final project. This is a picture of me trying to work on the project, the final output. And over here on the left, you can see the syllabus that I worked on. So I'm going to be completely honest with you all about my experience, especially when I first started out. I was kind of concerned about my suitability for this role. Right from the beginning, I think I was very interested in somehow participating in diversity, like encouraging diversity in curricula. But like this internship has challenged me like right from the start to think creatively, critically, and open-mindedly, because I am not a Black Studies scholar, nor was I in any way familiar with the material that the course hoped to offer and cover beforehand. And also, as someone who's not Black and has no idea firsthand what it means to be Black in North America, I honestly felt as if like perhaps I wasn't the right person to be in this position. However, I think this USRI was a learning process for me in so many ways as well. Not only was I able to engage with this material and critique the material, I was able to learn from it in a very academic kind of way. So then my perspective began to shift a little bit. So Dr. Lawson is really great, and she really helped me along to provide me with resources along the way. Firstly, inviting me to view a talk by Catherine McKittrick because I talked to her about my concerns, and this is a talk I still think about to this day called Black Studies Is. This talk, in tandem with the syllabus material I was to review and my conversations with Dr. Lawson, allowed me to be introduced to the ways Black Studies is for everybody and why it is so crucial in academia. I then began redirecting my focus from worrying about being incompetent to begin learning more about the subject itself while I worked. And that was very insightful and invaluable to me. And Dr. Lawson was also very patient with me and guided me through any questions I had. So I'm very grateful for her guidance. Some skills and knowledge I acquired are listed on the screen. I also want to admit that I never really liked research before this internship. I was pleasantly surprised that the entire time I felt engaged and passionate about the material, which helped me actually enjoy what I'm doing. I was able to acquire many more skills than I had expected, honestly, and it's wonderful that I was able to participate in contributing to diversity in curricula because that's always been on my radar. And of course, the end result was a final output. And that is one of the many pictures of me trying to work on my screen. So over the course of the internship, I became very interested in learning about the history of Black studies in traditional academia. And one thing I was particularly interested in is investigating how prevalent such modules are in Canada, which it's on the rise, but there's still a lot of work to be done. But here's my final report, as you can see at the bottom. And the QR code if anyone is interested at this minute, but it's on scholarship at Western if you're interested. And I think that this USRI is exactly, if not more, than what anyone would have expected from an internship, at least for me, because it allowed me to expand my research skills, challenge my current knowledge, and introduce me to new ideas. And it allowed me to produce a final report, which I'm very proud of. Overall, I'm very thankful for this opportunity to work with Dr. Lawson on the first syllabus for the Introduction to Black Studies course. So in terms of future implications that this internship could have, I can see this being incredibly helpful in shaping my career aspirations, such as in academia or education or pedagogy. I'm not completely clear where I want to go yet, so these are just some ideas I'm interested in. And now moving on to Aspire. So in addition to USRI, I also interned with Aspire Naturopathic Health Clinic, which is situated in Vancouver, BC. Aspire is a clinic that's open to anyone seeking naturopathic care or a more holistic approach to healthcare with a specific focus on women's health. So some goals and responsibilities included a whole range of marketing related tasks, such as setting up email campaigns, designing graphics for social media, engaging with their social groups, and designing an ebook for Dr. Emily's course, and overall building a marketing portfolio for the small clinic, as they had no previous marketing portfolio before hiring me. So that was a lot of fun to learn, and it was also really challenging to learn what it takes to develop like a whole new department, but I had a lot of guidance from Dr. Habert. So here are some examples of the graphics that I created for the internship. And these are ones I'm very proud of, as they're all hand-drawn and are all up on Aspire's like social media pages. I also created video series that took me a really long time to do and figure out, but I don't think I'm allowed to show that. But essentially they're informational for members of their wellness groups on social media. And these are some more infographics that are to be printed. I think they are printed right now, actually, as handouts for patients. And so I think as someone in arts, I never really had the opportunity to work closely with a health or science-based organization. So this was definitely a learning curve to represent an entire organization, first of all, and then a science and health-based organization. So it was a lot for me to handle all at once, but over time, I began to understand my capabilities a bit more so that I can make more productive promises and deliver them accordingly. And these are just some skills that I had developed and been able to work upon, which is exactly what I hoped to learn going into this internship. So unlike the USRI, there isn't a specific result So I decided to illustrate the hard skills that I had developed in addition to those soft skills, including some of the icons up here, like Adobe, MailChimp, Hootsuite, Procreate, etc. Some of these were actually very confusing beforehand, but now after the training I received, I feel comfortable with them, and I'm glad that I'm equipped with these hard skills I can present to future employers. Again, another picture of me at a computer. And the next, so I guess some next steps and looking at potential future implications of this internship. I guess to start off, like, I'm proud to say that I will be working for Aspire once again next semester. Dr. Haber invited me back, which I accepted. And this time around, I feel like I'm more well equipped with my prior knowledge of the company and also my skills. And I look forward to what I can accomplish with Dr. Haber and her team very soon. I think I always had marketing and like visual graphic design on my career radar. And so I'd love the opportunity to learn more about this field. And also then speaking from my English major side, I think technical writing is also something something that I would be interested in. And this internship has definitely helped introduce me to these things and build upon these skills. And that is it. But yeah, I am open to any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Tiffany. That was great. And oh my God, your infographics are beautiful. You did such a great job on those.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Oh, sorry. Tiffany, did you?
Oh, no, sorry. I was kind of speaking to myself. I was like, I can see people better this way. Yeah.
So do we have any questions for Tiffany? Era?
Hi, thank you. Tiffany, I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you so much. And I would love to go back to what you expressed about your uncertainty about embarking on the curriculum research project with Erica Lawson. As you know, I thought of you first when Erica and I talked about USRI, and that was because of the work that you had been already doing with the EDI portfolio in Arts and Humanities Student Council. So to me, you were supremely well qualified and prepared and oriented to do that work. But yet I totally sympathize with you, right, as somebody who cares about EDI, but often feels like, what right do I have, right, to participate in language or policy or curriculum around these things. And this is an ongoing discussion and problem. So I was so happy that you spoke to that at the beginning of your presentation. And I wonder if you could say if there were one thing that shifted for you in terms of your realization that, yes, you do have a contribution to make with this work. So I'm asking you about a kind of academic or pedagogical allyship, right? If you could, I don't know if that's too big a question, but.
Wait, so if I can clarify, are you asking me if there's like this one element that I came across during this internship that kind of, I guess, spurred on this shift in perspective?
Yeah. Or how you might articulate that shift in perspective in terms of what made it okay for you to then get into the work.
Right. I mean, as I mentioned in the presentation, the talk by Catherine McKittrick was definitely very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sure, like, I don't want to liberally say I can share it with whoever's interested, but I think that was a very comprehensive video that I watched. I think, again, like, that I still carry that to this day. And other than that, I think I guess like the conversations between Dr. Lawson and I, we were just always in conversation, especially in our Zoom calls and our like in-person coffee chats. I think it really dawned on me at a certain point in the internship where it's not that just because someone is not XYZ, for example, someone's not Black, that they can't participate in Black studies, just as the same for any other category as well. I think I would argue that it's actually very important for people who might not be Black to be also involved in Black studies and learn about what it means to be Black in North America and the diaspora. And yeah, I think this all goes for everything, all academia. I would invite people to just like learn more about things that they don't understand. Yeah, and like again, through all my EDI work, I think I would argue that it's even harmful to rely on, Black people to carry the Black studies, for example, or like Asian people to carry Asian studies. Like it just goes for everything. Like diversity is so important, and we can't rely on minority groups to, like argue for themselves and be their own voice. Like everyone has to be in the conversation. So I think that's like one of the biggest the biggest things that I learned in this shift of perspective, and that talk by Catherine McKittrick does touch upon that as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I am going to search for it, but I was really struck by you saying that you came to the conclusion that Black Studies was for everyone, and I that really resonated with me. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was great, Tiffany. Thank you so much, and congratulations on being asked back to Aspire next term. That's really impressive.
Thank you so much.
They're lucky to have you. So we'll move on to our sixth presenter today, who is Ariana Odland. She is presenting on her full credit internship that she undertook with Western Heads East in the summer of 2021. And I want to thank Ariana for the work she did in a subsequent internship with Western Heads East on a case study for Bob Goff and I. Bob said he's sorry he can't be here today, Ariana. And we've put that case study to use this fall in our third year course. So thank you for that. And I will hand it over to you.
Good to hear that part. That is useful. I'm going to mention it briefly, actually. Okay, so as everybody see the screen. Yep. Okay. All right. So as Barb said, I am, my name is Ariana. I recently went through a name change. So some of you might know me as Azadeh, and some of my documents actually have the name Azadeh. Long story, you'll read about it later in my writing, hopefully. So I'm going to talk about my internship experience for the summer of 2021 with Western Heads East. And before I begin, I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about to you, which is a roadmap of our minds. First, I want to talk about a little bit about Western Heads East and who they are. My internship with Mikona Yetu, how it's connected to Western Heads East, my placements, objectives, and tasks, the actual work I performed, and the learnings I've taken from this experience, and what I'm going to do going forward and what happened afterwards. So Western Heads East is a nonprofit organization. It works under the umbrella of Western International. It's a collaboration between Western staffs, students, faculty, and African partners. It uses a probiotic food to contribute to a health and sustainable development. Its journey began in 2002. The goal of this journey in its inception was to develop a sustainable community development project that goes beyond financial contribution to HIV/AIDS crisis in Africa. It's part of Western University's response to this global crisis. The collaboration between African partners and Western Heads East is really focus on health and sustainable development. The part of my internship is more focused towards the sustainable development of this project. There are various partners with various organizations that partner with Western Heads East, and some of them are in Canada, Kenya, Rwanda, and Tanzania. And the partner that I worked with was located in Tanzania, in Mwanza. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mwanza, and it does matter because when I started my internship, I actually didn't know where Mwanza is. So it was a geography lesson for me. There was also this media push for me to go and look and see, okay, what's the environment's like? I can't go there. I'm home, I'm locked in. What do I know about the people that live in Africa? And I was surprised that most of the pictures I saw on social media, it was more geared towards safari. This beautiful picture is one of those rare pictures you can find of Mwanza city. It's a large port city by Lake Victoria. It was originally found in 1892, and it has almost 1.2 million in its population. In 2015, a major policy change declared a free compulsory education for children age 7 to 14. And this is important because the children or the students that I end up working with were between age 15 to 19. So they wouldn't have access to this free education that the government was offering to them. Mikono Yetu, now my placement, is an organization that is located in Mwanza, and it's the contact person, or a person who collaborates with Western Heads East. Her name is Maimuna, and she's an amazing lady. She was my mentor and a positive influence in my thoughts towards the program, how I saw this project. Also, I had a lot of support from my supervisor, Maria and Bob, and I'm forever grateful for their for their influence in my learning journey. Mikono Yetu's mission is to find new ways to empower women and girls' economy. And when we first met with Maimuna, me and my partner Avery, we had no agenda, because through our training, pre-departure training, we talked about how developing agenda will become a bit dangerous to our outcome. So we try to go with a blank slate, have a listening ear, and hear the partner's needs and wants. So some of my placements learnings were the objectives that the partners wanted, and the placement task that was given, which was monthly meeting, creating intern blogs and reflections. Overall, my work ended up being developing a teaching English curriculum as a result to the organization wanting to educate these girls for careers in Tanzania, Mwanza. The girls were more empowered, learning, having the skills of being able to speak English or read and write in English. And I did it through designing these lessons. I'm really proud of the animations, because I learned how to do animation through my internship. And this is some of the pictures of our placement and the homework that the girls returned. The skills that I learned were critical thinking, collaboration, effective communication, and it also enhanced my creativity to look at the world in a different way. And finally, I was so glad I kind of stuck around a little bit longer. I ended up working an extra year with Western Heads East as a work study student, as Barbara already mentioned, and I was able to attend the 20th anniversary on October 6th and present my internship final report. And thank you very much, everybody. And if you are interested, please visit my blog. And also, I really strongly encourage you to visit the Western Heads East website. That's it.
Thank you, Ariana.
Open for a question. No.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Now I have to stop sharing.
There we go. Yeah, perfect. So are there any questions for Ariana? I'm going to step in then with a question. So I'd like to know, I'm always interested in having students talk about their strengths and weaknesses. So what were your strengths coming in? What weakness maybe did you realize you needed to work on?
Yes, that's a good question. It was about the time that I got this 6 minutes warning that I skipped that part. Some of the strengths that I built on going into the internship was that before I started this internship, I had an experience working online for a English teaching company where I taught individual lessons to Korean students. So that hard skills that I had from that transferred into being able to kind of pinpoint some of the needs of the organizations. And one of my challenges was that I thought that I am a mature student, I should know it all. And this was something that was really hard for me to overcome. But I am so glad that Maria was there and Bob and you were there, Barb, because I think Maria role modeled how that honest, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know it all. She was so open to supporting me with like my questions. So I didn't feel awkward asking questions. So that has actually helped me now in my work. When I don't know something, I don't just get stressed out or try to find it out on my own. I always reach out to other knowledgeable people, professors in the industry to kind of get their knowledge and use their expertise to answer my questions.
Yeah, I think that's so common for students. They even whether they're mature students or not, they think they should already know how to do a job they've never done before. And I can assure you, you never get to the point where you know it all ever. And if you find someone who claims they know it all, you should run the other way. So are there any other questions for Ariana? Thank you.
Rachel, I'm so sorry. How did you because I know Rachel actually ended up taking on the project I began and kind of followed up with it. I was so glad you did the program, the evaluation. I was pushing for that, but my time was almost up. How did you feel teaching those lessons, Rachel?
I thought it was, I found it really great. Like, I think the way that it was set up, like Mira and I definitely benefited from having like some of those previous documents that I believe came from you and I forget your partner's name, Avery,
Ashley and Avery.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that was like a huge help for us, but a lot of like things that we built on top of it came from the textbooks that Maria provided were really helpful for us as well. And then also the feedback forms gave us an option to really see what the girls wanted to learn. So we got like some suggestions on just specific topics that they were interested in, so like drama or sports. And then we worked those into the lessons to maybe do like a verb lesson with sports, which then really tied in together. So yeah, so I think that was really helpful, and that was a good part of teaching. So yeah.
Good, thank you. Sorry. Sorry, I held to my question until this point.
That's all right. Thank you. And yeah, it's so fun just to see, you know, two students kind of back to back and how one picks the other's work up. That was lovely. And thank you, Maria. We just so appreciate our partnership with Western Heads East, and can't wait until the students can start traveling.
Can you hear me there? Yeah. It's always a pleasure to work with SASAH students. You guys are amazing. I think next summer is going to be easier and better for students to travel, so I can't wait either. Thank you, Barb. And thank you, Rihanna and Rachel.
Thank you. We'll move on then to our seventh presenter today, who is Christina Reedon. Christina has two experiences to tell us about. The first was with Game Day London, an online publication and nonprofit that covers local sports in London. And the second is also sports related. Christina undertook a communications internship with the Mississauga Steelheads Hockey Organization this past summer. I'll hand it over to you, Christina.
All right, thanks, Barb. I'm just going to share my screen. All right. All right, there we go. Can everyone see that okay? Perfect. And then I'm just going to do a little test to see. Did the slides change? Perfect. Okay. Just getting that out of the way. Hi, so I am going to be talking to you about two experiences that I had, as Barb mentioned, one with Game Day London and one with the Mississauga Steelheads Hockey Club. So just a little about me. My hometown is Mississauga, and I'm in my final year of an honors specialization in kinesiology in the sport management module, which is why both my experiences are in that area, and SASAH, of course. And I also wanted to touch on some previous experience that I felt really benefited me going into these roles. So I have a lot of camp counselor experience through high school and even up until now. I've also been a ringette coach and instructor for a really long time, and some retail experience, which I found really helped with just like talking to people and that kind of thing, and content creation, which was a big help. I've been helping out our local ringette organization in Mississauga with their social media for a few years now. And I also did some work with another sports publication called the Sports POV. So yeah, I'll jump right in. So I'm just going to start with my learning goals and then both experiences, and then I will finish with some final thoughts. So as and oh, there we go. I wanted to focus on hard skills versus soft skills. So hard skills, I was looking to develop some new technical proficiencies just with different softwares and that kind of thing, because that's not really my strong suit. I also wanted to improve my current skills and just gain more confidence in those areas. And I also really wanted practical experience in the sports industry, which is anyone who works there now will tell you that experience is king. So I really just wanted to just get my name out there, I guess. And then in terms of soft skills, I really wanted to focus on learning how to communicate in a professional sense, as well as learning how to balance multiple tasks at once, which kind of plays into both time management and organization. And I also really wanted to figure out more ways that I could link the humanities with the sports industry. Content creation is maybe the most obvious option, but I wanted to see what other options were out there. So yeah, Game Day London is an online publication that focuses on local sports coverage. And I was with them from November of 2021 until April of 2022. And they were basically a startup when I first started with them, and I was their first ever intern, which was pretty cool. Yeah, and then I just have here a list of all of the different teams and things that they cover. And then my role was as an editorial intern. That's the title we officially decided on. And right when I started, it was very close to the Beijing Olympics. So a lot of my early projects really focused on that and preparing for that. So that was a lot of the research I was doing. My main job at that time was to find Londoners that were Olympic hopefuls and figure out how to contact them so they could be interviewed and then later profiled on the Game Day London website. And I also did some competitive research on what similar news outlets were doing and how their sites were laid out, just to see how we sort of matched up to them. And I was also looking at some awards and grants that a startup like Game Day London could apply to sort of help build up their brand. And then one of my other major projects was creating a database of businesses that were sponsoring every sports organization in London, which was a huge undertaking, but we wanted to have it so that we could track it for potential partnership opportunities in the future. And then finally, I performed a SWOT analysis since Game Day London was looking to expand into another city. So I was looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to see what the competition was covering and what other cities even had a sports culture that was worth covering. So that was a lot of fun as well. And then my main takeaways from this internship were communication, strategy, and data collection. So on the communication front, I really had to get comfortable like cold calling or cold emailing people, which was really awkward for me, honestly, at the beginning. But by the end, I felt like I was basically a pro. It was just a lot easier. Just practice makes perfect, I guess. From a strategy perspective, the first time I learned about a SWOT analysis was in first year, and I hadn't seen it since. So it was really great to see how a practical implementation of something I'd actually learned in a class could go. And then from data collection, I learned about how painstaking it could be, but also that attention to detail is key and how important it is to really get in the weeds and look for information and make sure that everything is accurate. And then moving on to the Steelheads. So the Steelheads are a major junior hockey team in the OHL and creating top NHL prospects. And then here in the blue, I have just a list of all the different areas that are covered by members of the front office staff. So I was with them from May 2022 to August, so over the summer. And I am from Mississauga, so I've been watching OHL games and going to Steelheads games for a long time. So it was really awesome to just be on the back end of it. And they actually celebrated their 10th year as being known as the Steelheads last year, which I was there for the tail end of. And then my role as a communications intern was primarily based in writing and video. I have a video there, I hope it's playing. And then, sorry, was that the 6-minute warning or? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I did a lot of writing very early on, a lot of post-game recaps and reviews, that making videos as well. And then community outreach was another really big part of the communications team's job. Different events we went to throughout the summer, and the picture is me there with the mascot at Tim Hortons Camp Day. And my job when we were at these events was essentially the mascot's handler, because he's a fish, his hands are webbed, so he can't really do much. Oh, okay, no. But that And then focusing on research, kind of like how in London. Miss Saga has a very diverse community with a lot of pockets of culture. And the team wanted to shift their demographic to reflect that. So a lot of my research was based on working with my fellow intern who was on graphics to come up with stuff to promote other holidays that hadn't been promoted in the past, and looking up local groups that could be highlighted at the team's multicultural night. And then outcomes from this internship, I'll sort of fly through these, and then if anyone has questions, then we can go back over it. But again, writing and editing, I just did so much of it that it couldn't help but improve, I thought. And now I think I'm really comfortable in the editing department. And then I also learned the importance of mentorship and building relationships. The communications team next to in this photo asset, and I, as was everyone, on to learning from people and asking questions. Back end. I kind of used industry insight as an umbrella term because I feel like I just learned so much about everything that I couldn't really summarize. And yeah, just general takeaways. I'm very grateful for both of these opportunities, and in the sports industry, experience is king. With that stuff was awesome. And then as of now, I'm still trying to narrow down what I want to do in the future. But thanks to my internship with the Steelheads, I'm now with the London Knights as a group experience intern. And I'm also working as the assistant curator of the JP Metris Sports Museum, which is in Alumni Hall at Western. So that is all. And thank you for listening.
That's great, Christina. Thank you so much. And congratulations on your internship with the Knights. That's amazing.
I have my, I'm headed there after this. I have my polo on already.
Amazing. Fantastic. I'll just ask you to stop sharing so I can see if there are any questions out there for you.
There we go.
Great. So does anyone have a question for Christina? Okay, I'm going to jump in again here. So Christina, do you have advice for SASAH students coming up behind you who have not yet done their EL on doing EL on undertaking experiences?
I would say my best advice is, my best two pieces of advice are research the organization that you're going to work with before you get there. Because I spent with the Steelheads a lot of time just trying to figure out what the players looked like without their helmets on, which was a whole ordeal. But yeah, just knowing what you're doing, knowing a little bit about the organization before you get there will just make you feel so much more comfortable. And then the other thing is trying to just like go in with an open mindset, and it's likely going to be like an internship or a learning centered thing. So people aren't necessarily expecting you to know everything. So don't feel like you have to know everything going in, and just really try and take advantage of the learning opportunity.
That's great advice. Yes. And you know, yeah, I never thought of how different hockey players look without their helmets. Any other questions for Christina? All right, we'll move on then. Thank you so much, Christina. Last today, but certainly not least, we have Celine Tang, who will be telling us about her marketing internship in the summer of 2020 with eSight, a biotech company in Toronto, and her people ops internship with Publicis Sapient.
Exactly.
Is that right? Publicis
Yes,
Sapient,
perfect.
a digital consulting company. I admit I had to look it up to know how to pronounce it. So
It's French. It's tough. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started then, if we're all good to go. Let me know if that looks good to everyone. All right. I'm also going to try moving forward and back. Okay. Looks good to me. Okay, I think I'm going to get started then. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to my presentation. I know it's been a few and I'm the last one, so I really appreciate you hearing me talk about my experiences at eSite and Publicis Sapient. I'm really excited to start sharing my story with you, so we can go ahead and jump right in. So my first EL experience, as we mentioned, was completed in summer 2020 at eSite, which is a tech startup that manufactured glasses for the legally blind. You can see an example on the right and on the left here. So I was hired as a marketing intern and I worked remotely with a small team of 3 others for about 4 months. So as a marketing intern, I had a diverse range of responsibilities and sort of goals that were set out for me. And due to the nature of startup, I often did find myself pulled into different tasks. But primarily, I would say that I had 4 main jobs. So firstly, to ideate, write, and upload blog articles onto WordPress. So for example, a recap of a recent event we held or a customer profile. Secondly, I also managed all of our social media platforms. So both in terms of uploading daily and also community management. Thirdly, because I had prior experience in university clubs with sponsorship and outreach, my manager let me take on a project that I ideated myself, where I found and partnered with 7 different digital influencers who were willing to create content about our newest product, which you saw on the last slide, eSite 4, for free. We didn't have to pay them. And fourthly, I also created SEO pages and I designed them on WordPress. And these were essentially pages that were designed to drive traffic to our site when people searched related terms like low vision aids or technology. So on this slide, you'll see an example of a blog post I wrote for eSite. I think it's still up on the website now. This one is actually a user profile of Gary talking about how the eSite 4 helped change his life, essentially, and how it helped him function in his daily life and the benefits that he's accrued from using this technology. So as this was my first internship ever, I definitely learned a lot about what it means to work in a professional setting. So number one, I gained so many hard skills that I was able to put on my resume after, such as WordPress, SEO, Google Analytics, and more. Second of all, learning how to be more professional was also a great takeaway, as in the past, I'd only worked in summer camps, so it's definitely really different to work in a startup and in a more professional setting. Thirdly, I found that I was able to better exercise my interpersonal skills because I often found myself in situations where I had to exercise conflict resolution. There's always tensions between marketing and sales for some reason. And this was extra tricky to navigate online, where I found myself communicating on Slack and on email a lot. And fourth of all, I didn't realize how much I would be personally impacted by and emotionally invested in our customers. Something I wrote about in one of my reflections actually was I was crying along on Zoom when one of the influencers tried the eSite 4, and she was able to see her kids and her husband for the first time in years. But then I remembered that I would have to ask to take it away from her again because she couldn't actually keep it and she was not able to afford it. So that experience just reminded me that this isn't just a job. What I do tangibly impacts other people's lives. And I think that's something that stuck with me for the rest of my internships and probably will for the rest of my life to come. So here are some pictures of me on the job. On the left are Crystal and Tucky, so 2 of the 3 of the main team members that I worked with. And on the right, here I am sitting in the same chair that I sat at every day during that summer. I'm looking at the homepage that I helped design for our website. All right, so moving on to my second EL experience. This was really recent. It was last summer, where I was a people operations intern for Publicis Sapient, or PS as we call it, which is a tech-based consulting business. So this internship was vastly different compared to the one I did at eSite because firstly, it was in HR rather than in marketing. And of course, my key responsibilities differed a lot as a result. So firstly, one of the major responsibilities I had was to oversee all 31 of the Canadian interns throughout their internship. So essentially helping my manager ensure that the program was running smoothly. So that could mean organizing lunch and learns, Friday socials, and more. Secondly, the other people operations intern and I were assigned an HR-related research project that we worked on throughout the summer. We were assigned the one where we investigated which behavioral assessment tool was best for screening candidates. And at the end, we were able to present our findings to our manager and also the senior program director at PS. Third of all, I also helped a lot with recruitment for the upcoming intern and full-time cohorts, which meant I did a lot of sourcing on LinkedIn. And for me, that meant identifying promising candidates based on existing criteria that I was given. And finally, the last major responsibility I had was assisting with the other interns' summer-long projects, where they were assigned a real-world problem. So for example, building a chatbot for Verizon or another company like that. And they had to build a tech solution and give a final presentation. So while they were doing all of that, my role in that was to help coordinate schedules, communicate with executive sponsors, which were full-time employees at the company, hold daily meetings, and also just keep the morale up. Here is an example of slides from the project presentation that was given by the engineering and product management interns that I just talked about. The PowerPoint is a little bit confidential, so I'm not able to share it too much, but here's the title slide and here's the introduction slide for me as well. So my main takeaways from my time at Publicis Sapient was firstly, this was my very first in-person internship experience at a large corporate company. eSite was a small startup and it was all remote. So it was a completely different experience. And so that meant going into the downtown Toronto office every day was definitely a learning curve. Waking up at 6:30 was tough, but it was definitely a fun experience as well. Secondly, as I mentioned before, I've never really worked or even volunteered in an HR-related capacity before. So it was firstly a surprise to even get the job, but it was also a lot of fun to be able to explore an entirely different sector and gain skills related to that field. So people management in this instance. And moreover, even though I said that this was an in-person experience, we did have to go online maybe 4 out of the 12 weeks that I was working there because interns were catching COVID left and right, which meant that being adaptable was really crucial in order to continue doing my job effectively because my working environment was changing every day and it was really unexpected. And overall, because my manager had so much on her plate, she would also ask me to take on some of her tasks, which was always a learning opportunity as well, such as hosting one of the sessions for the full-time cohort training. Finally, I also learned that it was important to have realistic expectations about what the job would be like. So for instance, the job description that I applied to had a super detailed breakdown of what we would be spending our time doing, but in reality, the time spent on each of those tasks was vastly different when I started the job. So I realized it's important to speak to those at the company if I'm not sure about what to expect, but also to be prepared for changes at any time, regardless of what the job description says. Since this was an in-person experience, I have a lot more photos of me on the job. I won't go through every single one of them, but in the bottom right, I'll point out that you can see all of the other interns that I had the pleasure of working with this summer. And to its left, so sort of the middle bottom, you can see me, my manager, and the other people off intern. We're all holding huge bags of popcorn because we were just about to distribute it for our popcorn social. This internship was a lot of fun. As you can tell by all the photos, it was a really great experience overall. So to sort of recap both of my EL experiences, firstly, I am super, super grateful to have partaken in these opportunities. And I was able to learn a lot about what I want for my future and also grow a lot personally. So speaking first in terms of what I realized I want from my future workplaces and companies, I found that I was able to learn about the importance of company culture in a workplace. So for example, I never felt pressured to work overtime at PS because they literally had us lock up our laptops after 5 p.m. so we wouldn't feel like we had to overwork ourselves. And another experience I had at PS was I was able to better understand the value of a company prioritizing EDI. So for example, when the Roe v. Wade decision went out, everyone received an email from the CEO discussing how the company was going to respond in the wake of that. And even though I was no longer going to be working there, as a woman, it was really important for me to receive that communication from my employer. And additionally, I felt like I grew a lot as a result of taking part in these internships. I was able to work in a variety of workplaces and experience so many different company cultures, which makes me more adaptable and also helps me realize what settings I believe I thrive in. I also gained a diverse range of skills from copywriting to influencer management to event planning to public speaking. I feel I came out of my ELs a more confident and capable person. And finally, they were also crucial in helping me figure out what I value and what I enjoy in my job, which I think is invaluable after graduation when I start to search for full-time employment. So overall, I am very thankful to SASAH for encouraging and supporting us in our EL journeys. And I'm also thankful to all of you today for listening. Thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you, Celine. That was great. Are there any questions for Celine? Andrew?
Awesome. Great presentation. That was really cool. One of the things I'm actually really curious about, and I wish I would have had the opportunity to ask every single person that spoke about this, but what was it like for you actually searching for these internships? It strikes me that your experiences in particular were quite unique and quite interesting. So I'm just curious, like, what the application process was like, whether you were like cold emailing people, cold calling people, or whether you went through typical application processes.
Yeah, that's a great question. I can speak about my application process for PS. The eSite one gets a little fuzzy for me as it was so long ago. So I do remember for PS, it was sort of just application I saw on Indeed or LinkedIn, like just a job posting I was looking at during the winter break. I was applying to a lot because I was getting increasingly anxious about not having a job in the summer, which I now realize is a little bit early to start feeling those anxieties, but I really wanted to have those nailed in as soon as possible. So I saw that the job posting was definitely something that I was personally interested in. Like I knew I wanted to do something different from marketing for the summer, and this was very HR, business, research. And I found that the skills that they listed, while not explicitly taught in my program, like I'm not a business student in any way, I've never taken any business courses, I felt like I was able to mold my prior experiences to sort of fit that job description. So I just sent my resume. I don't even think they required a cover letter. And after that, it was just a sort of screening, a behavioral interview, and then I got the job. So it was not too difficult for me, thankfully. But I think that perhaps the most difficult hurdle to get across was the line in each job posting that says, you must have a degree in something that most of us do not have a degree in. And realizing that even though they say that, it's not actually crucial that you have that if you can demonstrate in other ways that you possess the skills that are necessary to do the job well. Because my other people ops intern, for instance, she majors in governance, leadership, and ethics, which is also not really business either. And the job description specified, business or some sort of related degree. So I think we were both able to succeed in spite of or even despite that. Thank you, Andrew.
That's great advice about, and I think it's true. We hear this over and over, even if you don't, meet all the qualifications, to just put yourself out there. So as a follow-up, then what do you think is the most important thing you did to get yourself out there, to make them notice you?
For sure. Well, I think the most important thing is firstly applying broadly. So you're putting yourself out there for a lot of different companies, because I do understand that some companies might not value what you bring to the table as an art student, and that's their prerogative. So just making sure that you cover your bases, but also making sure that I had a resume that addressed each of the points in the posting as closely as possible. So even though I didn't have specific HR experience, I did have experience working with Iconoclast, for instance, where I managed a team of about 20 volunteers. So I sort of incorporated that into people management, and I used the keywords that they provided in the description to mold my experiences to fit that.
Yeah, it's so important to be able to learn how to talk about your experiences and as you say, mold it to the job ad or however they put it out there.
Mm-hmm,
yeah,
absolutely.
Great. Any other questions for Celine? Thank you, Celine. That was great.
Thank you so much.
So we've come to the end of our presentations. I just want to thank all our presenters today. Congratulations on the great jobs that you did, not only on your presentations, but also on your experiential learning opportunities. As I said before, you really all got glowing reports from your supervisors. It's just so great to work with you and your supervisors on these experiences. I will be posting the presentations along with the students' final reports on your experiences in SASAH Scholarship at Western page. And the video of this event will be posted on our website as well. So if someone wasn't able to be here, you can tell them that they can access this a bit later. Once I get some marking done, I'll get to the video. So that's it for me. I'm going to send it over to Era for some final words today.
Thank you, Barb. And really, it's my honor to offer some thanks. And I would like y'all just to bear with me for a minute or two or three while I do the thank yous. They have been This has been a really wonderful hour and 3/4. I am so incredibly proud of our students, but I also really need to thank all of our friends and supporters who joined us today. I know some of them have already had to go, but without our partners, without our supporters, the experiential learning program would not exist and our students would not have access to these wonderful opportunities. So I really want to express my heartfelt thanks for that. I want to thank the students, and I just have to say that the majority of the students who presented today just came off Tuesday night where they were involved in a fabulous performance, and each of them made a unique contribution of their own creative work. And the preparation for that was meticulous and rigorous, and the result was beautiful. And now here you are again on Friday, presenting us with these beautiful, polished and professional and really carefully thought out and reflective presentations on your experiences. So thank you to Shai, Catherine, Matthew, Rachel, Tiffany, Ariana, Christina, and Celine for your presentations. I want to thank Jen for keeping time today. Thanks so much, Jen, for doing that, and for all the things that you do to keep SASAH afloat. Again, you're a person that we wouldn't survive ever without you. But I think especially today, I'd like to thank Dr. Barbara Bruce, SASAH's experiential learning coordinator. As most of you know, experiential learning is really a cornerstone of the SASAH program and one of its greatest attractions. And Barb has been invaluable in working with all of our partners to create these really rich and meaningful experiences for our students. And she works with each of the individual students as well to make sure that they have the experience that best suit their needs and their goals. She works to ensure that students reflect on what they've learned and that they communicate that learning to the rest of us as they've just done here today. I really cannot imagine a better person for this role than Barb, and we are so fortunate to have her on the SASAH team. So I'm feeling really grateful today. I'm feeling like I love my job, and that's thanks to all of you. Great to see some of our alumni here. Andrew, so nice to see you. I hope you all are heading into a really fantastic weekend. So thanks a lot. And bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.